Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 72nd episode of Visioncon Live, your go-to nerdy talk show. I'm your host, Zach Wilson. You didn't come here to see me today. You came to meet the man of the hour. He's Coda from High School of the Dead, Fatty Bucha from Air Gear, Curly from Upote, just to name a few. No matter what role he's in, you can always be sure that he's going to knock it out of the park. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the one, the only, Mark Leskowski. Mark, how are we doing today?
Doing well, sir.
For those of you, for our audio listeners, you're not able to see this, but this is a special late night episode of Visioncon Live, which is why my face is currently unshaven.
So you had to explain that.
I had to, because for some of our visual viewers, they probably see I'm looking a little bit more scruffy than I usually do, but hey, right. I thought, what better time than a late night Visioncon Live?
After dark.
After Visioncon Live after dark. I love it.
The 10 o'clock show gets a little blue.
Ooh, it certainly does. Well, guys, before we kick things off, there is someone that we all collectively need to thank because, ladies and gentlemen, this week's episode of Visioncon Live is brought to you by Anime Collectors United. ACU is your one-stop shop for all things anime, with plenty of community engagement, autograph giveaways, and so much more. There's something for all anime fans to enjoy. Visit them online on their Facebook page, and thank you, ACU, for sponsoring today's episode. And Charlie, if you're watching right now, we love you. And from all of us at Visioncon, thank you for making so many guest appearances possible and happen. So, Mark, let's kick it right off. I'm really excited to just jump right in. So, Mark, you are known for a bunch of characters throughout your career, and we're going to get to 3 of them. But what I wanted to touch on first is how we got here. Was showbiz always the plan, or did something happen later on in life that brought us to where we are today?
Well, I've almost always been an actor. My first show was in elementary school. I was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, so I've always been doing that. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Parma, to be exact, the same place where Drew Carey's from. If you're familiar with him. And I moved to Houston in 1994 because at the time I was a lubricant analyst, which I worked in a laboratory for a long time. Being an actor, I swore to myself at a very early age that I was never going to wait tables, and nothing against people who wait tables. It's just I never wanted to be that bitter actor who could have been somebody or whatever, and ended up doing that. Well, I bartended, but I've never waited tables. I came very close, actually, only a few months ago, waiting tables for the first time in my life, but I was spared at the last moment.
Dodged the bullet.
But when I moved here in 94, I was a lubricant analyst, and I subsequently, about maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months after I first moved here, I did my first theatrical production in Houston, and needless to say, it was terrible. But I worked another show in 96 at an outdoor venue, a bar called Last Concert Cafe. Here in Houston, and it was a production of Lysistrata. Again, it wasn't really high quality. We actually did it in the rain once, but I met a gentleman there who was in the show, who told me about a show called Avenue X that was auditioning at another venue in town. I went to the audition. Actually got lost finding the place because it was just a small little, but I wouldn't even call it a theater at the time, in this neighborhood. It was basically, used to be a convenience store. It was just a small black box theater. And the show was called Avenue X. I ended up going and auditioning for it. And I met, at the audition, I met a woman by the name of Julia Kay, and she was auditioning for a part, and it was actually only an 8-person a cappella musical. So there was no accompaniment, and everybody was singing a cappella music. It was about race relations in New York in the 50s era, I guess. And I ended up getting the bad guy part. I killed the lead character, and Julia ended up getting the lead female part. And 2 weeks after the show closed, I proposed to her. So we've been married for going on 24 years in September. And that started my acting community in Houston, and have done many shows since. It was shortly after that I met a friend of hers, and we ended up doing this thing called the Yuletiders, which was just basically caroling around Christmas time at businesses and that sort of thing. And her friend's husband at the time was John Grimion. I don't know if you're familiar with that name, but he was the one that suggested to me, said, hey, there's this company called ADV in town. You should probably go and audition for him, which I did. And I got my first role at ADV with Matt Greenfield, and doing, I think the character's name was Han in Masters of Mosquiton. I was a young boy who turned into fire, and then the young girl turned into ice.
Oh, sick.
Anime. But we were vampire killers or something of that nature. That was my first role in 1996, I believe, was when I got that role. So that's how I got into it. John Grimion's recommendation, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Right place, right time. A lot of guests that we've had on the show kind of say the similar thing, that they've kind of fallen into it and they were in the right place at the right time. So.
Yeah. That's basically, these days, it's very difficult to do anything the way things have always been done, because things change so quickly now that, when I was acting and, I had to spend $150 to get, 200 headshots with resumes in black and white, 8x10s. That is something of the past. Most people don't deal with that stuff anymore. They just take a picture on their phone and they're done. They don't even necessarily need a resume anymore. It's just a matter of getting to the right connection at the right time with the right person.
Kind of with the market being so saturated, and also all these technological advances, I can understand that it's definitely not how it used to be. And so that's sometimes can be an uphill battle, I have to assume.
It's a double-edged sword. It's like everything. Right now, I did a show not too long ago, a Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and one of the girls that was in the show learned to dance on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
She just, and she had never danced in a show before, and she did spectacularly. You can learn anything at the tip of your fingers now. Information is so prevalent that, you don't need to have, you have to live your life. You have to live your experiences. You have to bring something to the table. But breaking the ice isn't what it used to be.
Yeah.
You don't have the casting couches as much anymore. Yeah, you do. You still have to have connections. You have to know certain people in certain places. But it's also very easy to create your own content anymore. Yeah. That's basically what everybody's doing.
Yeah. And we are
that is a competition, but if you can figure out your niche or your way in or your specialty, you have it made. I've been lucky enough that I fell into an audition, which they don't even have open auditions anymore, to my knowledge. It's basically just word of mouth getting into places anymore. And they keep calling me back. So I must be doing something right. That's basically where it comes down to.
And now here we are.
Yeah. When I first started, I was working with a bunch of, I had a body of shows that I'd done and local actors that I'd worked with. And over the years, I found out that the majority of them had done anime at the same company that I was working at. And that was like, oh, you do that too? Great, but I had never actually met them. Most of the people that I work with or that are in animes with me, I don't necessarily know a lot of them. I mean, I know Kyle Jones and John Swayze and John Grimion because I've worked with them for so long and they are directors. But as far as other voice actors, I've only met through doing theatrical stuff or, or commercial work or whatever, that sort of thing.
And so for people who may not know, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but the reason for that is, so unlike American animation or animation with voice acting that is innate to when it is initially being animated, for Japanese dubbing, often you guys aren't doing ensemble voice recordings. It's usually you guys.
No, it's very. In fact, Sentai, which was ADV, to my knowledge, doesn't even have, they used to have at the old ADV studios on Bentliff, they used to have a studio with the recording console in the center, a booth on this side and a booth on this side. And you could, every now and then you'd see somebody in the other booth and you'd be working together. But that was very rare. And he's usually only on like extra content, like commentary at the end.
Oh, gotcha.
And when I did those sorts of things, those kinds of shows were already, I had done like already 5 years previous, and I had to like, okay, I don't remember anything about this, so we just make up stories for the most part.
Right. Well, we'll jump right in to some of the characters that we'll dissect a little bit. But before we do that, I did want to reiterate, for new viewers of the show, first off, welcome. But secondly, a lot of you have already messaged Visioncon directly your viewers' comments and questions. But for new people that are on the show, you guys can do that, or you guys can put in the live chat your viewers' comments and questions, and we'll try to get through as many as we can at the end, guys. But with that said, let's jump right in. So this first character is from a show that if any of you guys out there are either fans of horror anime or harem anime, you guys have probably at least heard of...
Isn't it all harem anime?
It's the anime that is the kind of marriage of the two. So our first character that I'm going to have us talk about, let's talk about Coda from High School of the Dead.
There he is.
Give us a brief overview of the character, maybe some fun anecdotes involved in getting and playing the part, anything at all, Mark.
Well, Coda was one of those guys who I particularly cared for because it wasn't an odd voice for me. It was basically just me, which was actually one of the first times I just did me. I didn't do a funny voice. I didn't do a little kid. I didn't do an old man, and it wasn't a lot of, violent reactions like screaming and that sort of thing. One of my only a cathartic sort of character for me because he was so nerdy and brainy and that sort of thing. But I found that a lot of people that are fans of Coda are also big fans of weaponry and that sort of thing, which is something that sort of made me a little uncomfortable at times when it comes to, like killing people and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really a violent sort of person. So it was a little bit cathartic for me. And I did sort of base him on a sort of a Clint Eastwood sort of character.
I can see that. So,
but he did get the girl. He did get the girl every now and then. So gotta love him.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you didn't really have to alter your voice that much for Coda. Do you find that with the more characters that you voice throughout the years, you have to maybe do some more extreme off-the-wall voices?
As I'm getting older, a lot more times than not, I am just doing my own voice. In fact, the last big one I did was Shirobako. and forgive me, but I don't remember the name of the character I did, but he even looked like me, which Coda sort of looked like me as a little bit as well. I wasn't wearing glasses at the time. I am now, so I guess I'm looking more like him.
There you go.
With the glasses. But yeah, I tend to do more rangy type stuff, like age-wise. Like, for instance, the first one I did, I had to do a little boy, and that was the reason they hired me in the first place, was because I could do a younger voice just by pitching my voice up and sounding younger.
Got it. Okay. All right. Interesting. Well, these next two characters, now, guys, I'll be full honest, cards on the table. I am not too familiar with these characters, so I'm going to be in the same boat as some of you, where we're going to learn a little bit about two new characters, one of which, now he just looks super fun, Mark. Let's talk about Fatty Bucha from Air Gear.
Fatty was one of my favorites. It was directed by John Swayze, and he was a giant man with just a really great story, a really great backstory. He was a kid, sort of an abused, neglected kid, and it came to, he was always picked on for eating too much and being fat and all that. So I related to it very well. But he had a heart of gold, and he found his passion through the skating. And he found his own talent, and he was appreciated for it, and he excelled at it. Just a really great character. I just really loved him. I wish there was more of him. Funny story too, when I later on, I was working at a liquor store for a long time, here, a local store, and there was an employee there that I worked with that I had a real problem with. He was just a jerk. He hated me, and I couldn't stand being around him. And one day, my other coworker, who was a very good friend of mine, told him that he'd found out that I was Fatty Bucha, and his whole demeanor changed on a dime. He grew up like 3 or 4 blocks from me. And he did not hate when he found out that Fatty Bucha lived only 3 blocks from him. He lost his shit. And so from that day on, I was like, okay, there's something to this.
Sure.
It's not just stroking my own ego, but I'm actually doing something to that makes people happy, basically. Yeah, and that really made me feel good. To realize that I wasn't just doing this because it just so happened that I was at the right place at the right time. There was a meaning and a purpose behind all of it.
And real quick before we continue, Chris,
no worries,
came in clutch and said, "Hey, Mark, the character you did, the one that you had trouble remembering the name of, was Saichi Kinoshita."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
That sounds about right. If you can find a picture of him, he looks exactly like me.
Does he really? Okay, we'll have to try to figure that out. So you said that you related a lot to Fatty Bucha. You mentioned it, maybe aesthetically, but would you say personality as well is something you really related to as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet when it comes down to it. I wouldn't exactly call myself shy, but I do have a tendency to pull back from a lot of situations, especially socially. Like I mentioned Avenue X, my favorite part of the role that I met my wife in was that even though it was in a small room with only like 3 rows of seats on 3 sides of the stage, I wore no makeup, but was able to come out at the end of the show and nobody recognized me.
Wow.
I've always been proud of that I could be on stage and make myself into somebody else with my own face and without any special help, but still be unrecognizable as that person I was portraying.
You got the gift, Mark. What else can I say?
I mean, I don't like to brag. I'm not one of those people who is like, I don't want to be better than everybody else. I know I'm good, but I don't like to compare myself to anybody else, or, to make anybody else feel lesser.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, of course. Though I would argue it's my show, so I'll brag about you all I want.
Well, thank you. Then I will take that. I always enjoy a good ego stroking.
There you go. That's Visioncon Live in a nutshell. All right, guys, we're going to talk about our last character, and I'm pretty stoked for this one because he just looks super fun. So it is from, Upote.
Upote, I believe, is how it's pronounced.
Like, phonetically, that is how it reads. So tell me all about Curly from Upote, Mark.
Well, okay. This is one of those animes where it's basically two girls going around shooting and killing everybody.
Okay.
That's really all I know about the plot, other than this character that was given to me by Loraldo Endozula. I believe that's how you pronounce his. That's close to his last name. Forgive me, Loraldo. Who I actually worked with in High School of the Dead. He was one of the characters in High School of the Dead. Oh. And he booked me for this character. I do not know why he picked me for this character. This man wears a purple dress and is an arms dealer that sells the girls their guns. And I wish I could just pull his voice out of my butt, but it has to be one of those things like, when I go into the studio, I don't necessarily have anything prepared. I don't get, basically I just get here's the character, here's the script, go, pick something. And the voice I picked for this was quite out of my usual bailiwick. And what came out of it, I was really proud of. So I'm sure there's a lot of people these days who would necessarily maybe think I was making fun of anybody or something like that. But this was just somebody that came out of me, and I can't make any apologies for it.
Sure. But you say, and we've had guests in the past mention that, especially for when you're dubbing anime, you often don't have a lot of time and resources to prepare.
Seconds.
Yeah, exactly. You have to essentially like do it on the spot. I mean, does that ever, stressful? Or is it something that kind of separates the pros from the novices?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's an entirely different animal than theater or even some filming aspects, because basically you're put into a room and you're expected to just voice this character. And if they don't like it, they'll say, change it. And then you change it to something else. And luckily I have the ability to do a vast amount of different things because I've been acting since I was a little kid, and because I've been in so many different theatrical productions, and because I was raised by TV basically. So I did a lot of imitations of, Bugs Bunny, Mel Blanc voices and things like that. Not to say that I'm anywhere near a Mel Blanc, but I do have a certain number of things that I kind of specialize in. One thing in particular that I'm well known for and called in for many often is basically ball pain. So There was a period of time where whenever a character got kicked in the balls, they would call me. In fact, there was one character I did called Noir. The show was called Noir. It was another one of these two girls going around shooting everybody in place. But I was only called in for that specific part. I was in the third episode of Noir, and the script was written by Tiffany Grant, and it was directed by Matt Greenfield. And Tiffany Grant, when she had done the translation and done the script, she put in the script this is Mark Laskowski's part. And I only went in for, it was 10 minutes. I was in a library. I was a security guard in a library. The girls are, I sneak up behind one of the girls and I pick her up by the arm. And as I do, she turns around, she knees me in the balls. I scream in pain. I turn around and my own other security guards all shoot me in the back as I come out into the stacks of the library.
Oh my God.
And I thought, I get paid for this. How much better does life get than that?
It's funny you say that, because we actually talked when Tiffany Grant was on the show. We actually talked a fair amount about noir, but she did fail to mention that part.
Yeah, well, it's one of those little, hidden secrets.
Oh,
so there you go. You're welcome.
Behind. And so we're about to move on to the next segment, but real quick, I did go ahead and look up that character, and I gotta say, you are 100% correct, Mark, because
which one are we talking about? Oh, yes. Yeah, he's me.
Yoshida,
and he loves fried chicken. I mean, there you go.
What more? I was about to say, just the same image.
Unfortunately, apparently Sentai only had the first. No, they don't have the rights to the movie, and the movies just came out, and I'm not in it. So there you go. That's the life of anime. You just got to go where the parts come. So
parts come.
Yep.
So guys, we're going to take a brief step away from the characters, and I want to touch a little bit on the industry itself, because a lot of people that watch the show, Mark, obviously come to hang out and meet the wonderful guests that we have on, one of which is sitting right before me. But the others, we've realized, come on, watch this show. Either they come to in-person Visioncon to meet the celebrities, or tune in to virtual Visioncon, or tune into Visioncon Live, because they either want to get in the entertainment industry or already are and just want to know what to do next. So for someone as successful as you, the following two questions, I want you to keep that in mind, because the first question has to do with rejection. So like I've said in the past, guys, rejection's a part of life no matter how you look at it. However, I would say if there was ever an industry where rejection would be most prevalent, it would be your industry, Mark, which is, of course, the entertainment industry. So for the viewers watching at home that either want to get in the entertainment industry or already are and just want to know what to do next, how would you advise them to handle rejection once it inevitably comes?
I think part of my, the length and breadth of my career was never to expect anything. Rejection comes from, it's like, for instance, Sean Young, when she wanted to play Batgirl. We all saw that breakdown on when she was on The Tonight Show or whatever that was, when she came in dressed as Batwoman or Batgirl, whatever it was. And I don't know enough about anime, honestly, to say, okay, so for instance, the one that you just showed, that was presented to me by a friend of mine and said, and it just so happened I looked just like that character. Now, I felt upset that I didn't get to play the movie part, but that was just, a simple political thing. It wasn't necessarily because somebody else did it better or whatever. I guess I just don't have any expectations. But I try not to turn down any opportunity that I may not be suited for. So that limits the amount of rejection that you get, simply because you just keep trying. You just got to keep. I mean, it's all a matter of percentages when it comes to commercials, when it comes to anything in any industry. As long as you keep trying, as long as you keep finding new things for yourself, and as long as you don't say that I can't do that, then you don't have anything to worry about when it comes to rejection.
It's a good way to look at it. Very realistic.
I mean, I guess I've been rejected. But I don't know. I've never felt like, I mean, yeah, I've been upset that I haven't gotten certain roles that I felt I was good for.
Sure.
But as far as anime is concerned, I very rarely do I have to audition for anything. I mean, and that's the pretty much the only game in Houston. I mean, Funimation has turned me down many times, and they have Fatty Bucha as a matter of fact, and they're re-recording everything. They don't call me; they're in Dallas, so very rarely do they go, and say, "Oh, well, they don't necessarily reject all Houston actors," but it costs them more to get a Houston actor up to Dallas than it does to just get somebody from Dallas to do it.
That's fair, but then again, that's another like political thing. It's not exactly.
It's not in my hands. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I do what I do, and if you don't like it, I just move on and do something else.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, the only thing you could do is move up to Dallas, and I don't know if
I don't
I know you like the character. I don't know but it is pretty out of your hands. But so the next question I wanted to ask you, and in the similar vein, is there any general advice that you would like to give the viewers at home that want to get into the entertainment industry or already are and just want to know what to do next? What's advice that maybe you wish you had when you first started out?
Just keep doing it. There used to be a televangelist, Robert Fulton, I believe his name was. He used to always have an advertisement on television where he would just say, "Don't just sit there. Do something." That's basically it. I mean, you just got to do it. You just got to, I mean, if you really want to be successful, which really in its own definition that's your choice. I mean, I could call myself a success at anime. I don't necessarily believe it, to be honest with you. I mean, in the 26 years I've been doing this, I've been invited to 2 conventions.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I really, because I don't, like, I think I discussed this with you before. I don't, like I said, I get thrown into the booth. I do my thing. I go home. I don't really invest a lot of time in learning the plot line of the story of, I mean, as it pertains to my character at that moment, sure. But if they were, to die, because most of my characters die, to be quite honest. I'm dead within 2 or 3 episodes, typically. Some of my deaths are very notorious. In fact, Chris Ayers used to use one of my death scenes in the I can't remember the name of the anime anymore, but he used to use one of my death scenes as an example to new people.
The gold standard.
Yeah, he would, when a new person would come in or they had auditions, he would show, it was like the obsession of Nabuta or something like that. Okay. And I died so epically that I almost lost my voice. A lot of my friends, especially the women, tend on getting like nodes and things like that. So if you do want to get into anime, you have to take care of your voice. And I am the worst example of that. I used to always think I had cords of steel. Only lately has my wife's vocal training come in handy in warming me up, and I have to now exercise my voice before going into the studio now.
Wow.
Almost on a regular basis. Especially with the show that I'm doing now with her. I'm doing a 2-person show with her where I'm doing 10 different characters.
Oh my God.
And that is quite taxing at the end of the night.
I can imagine. And like, that is a gamble that you take, because with your voice being your main, I mean, yes, what you do for a living, but also your main source of income. If anything were to happen, that God forbid,
right,
you'd be out of a job.
Right.
And so you mentioned nodes. What exactly, for those of us?
Nodes are lesions that can happen on your vocal cords when you overstress them too much and you don't warm yourself down and warm yourself up beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of singers will get them if they're doing like on tour or something like that. I luckily have avoided them most of my life. But you can still overcome that sort of thing as long as you use the proper breath technique and that sort of thing. There's a whole school of thought on that. I actually was a singer in college for a brief period of time. I was a music major for a semester. That didn't work out so well, though, because my voice teacher wanted to be an opera singer, and I wasn't interested in being an opera singer. So what did I do? I married an opera singer. What are you going to do?
There you go. you were participating in the opera in some form.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, for those of you at home, now you have all the tools necessary to be the next Mark Laskowski. All right, guys. Now, if you haven't already, message Visioncon directly, your viewers' comments and questions, or put them in the live chat. Now is your last chance to do so because, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the plug zone. Mark Laskowski, now is your opportunity to plug, promote, advertise, whatever verb you want to use, anything you want. The floor is yours, sir.
I am currently doing a show here in Houston, and we're working on actually taking it to Branson next year, Branson, Missouri. It's called Tenderly, the Rosemary Clooney story. My wife plays Rosemary Clooney, and I play 10 other people in her life. It's about Rosemary Clooney is a very famous singer in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Who started her career with her sister. She was in the movie White Christmas. She was married 3 times to 2 different people. I play Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, Jose Ferrer, her husband, Dante DePaulo, another one of her husbands, her mother, her sister, her doctor, because it all basically takes place in her psychiatrist's office. She had a nervous breakdown because she was in attendance at Robert Kennedy's campaign speech where he was assassinated. She was there with her children, and she subsequently had a nervous breakdown afterwards due to her issues with drug abuse and other aspects of her life. So we're very excited about it. It's a very good show. We're going to be opening again. We've done it for about 4 weeks in a place called the Charles Bender Center in Humble, Texas, and we're getting ready to do it at the Midtown Arts Center in Houston, downtown Houston, starting on August 26th through September 4th.
Okay.
So there it is. That's my plug.
That's awesome. And all right, guys. Well, then we're going right out of the plug zone and going right to our final segment, viewers' comments and questions. Like I usually do, guys. Actually, you guys have all messaged Visioncon directly, your viewers' comments and questions. So I'll read those out. We have time for about 5 or 6. So I'll jump right in with Charlotte, who tuned in and said, "Hey, Mark, when you're not working, what are some of your favorite hobbies?"
Well, I don't really have hobbies. I have a whole bunch of side gigs. Okay. My latest thing that I'm learning to do now is I am a piano technician. I go around and clean and tune pianos. I'm still learning, of course, and fixing as well. This is something that I just started doing about 2 months ago. Okay. On top of that, I make jelly. I grow hot peppers. I have jelly that it's called Caustic Jelly is the brand name. And my specialty is hot apple pie, which is a habanero apple jelly. And it's on sale at Boss Cat Restaurant here in Houston.
Oof. Is there anywhere, for me personally, can you order it online or is it just through there?
Right now I'm working on, I have to get some money together so I can get my website online. Sure. And yes, it will be for sale on the web eventually. It's just the timing of that is TBD.
For sure. Just promise me that once it goes online, you'll shoot me a DM.
No worries. I will do that.
All right. So Todd tuned in and asked, what are the types of characters you like playing the most?
Recurring ones that don't die.
Okay.
I loved Shirabachi just because it was me. I didn't have to put on any special affectations, and I like characters that have something to say. Like Fatty Bucha had something to say, and ones that I connect with personally from my own background, basically.
Sure.
And I do like to do the wild, crazy ones too. I have to be honest; those are a lot of fun, but those are very hardly sustainable in a lot of cases.
Sure. Well, kind of in a similar vein, Ryan tuned in and said, "Hey, Mark, I just wanted to know: are there any characters that you've done throughout the years that you wish had more of a spotlight?"
That had what?
That he said that if you had any characters that you had done throughout the years that you wish had more of a spotlight. Like, I guess we're more well recognized that you feel deserved to be.
Yes. I had a lot of fun doing Biam and Michelle. However, that was loosely based on The Little Prince, and it was a very short run. I was a little snake that I kind of pulled a Regis Philbin kind of voice with. There was also a character in Comic Party Revolution, which wasn't in the actual anime. He was just a fish that came out and introduced it at the very beginning. So he was like in the trailer, but he wasn't in the actual episode. I loved him.
That's wild.
Yeah.
All right, we have time for about one more, guys. Ashley tuned in and said, are there any roles that you've done that were really hard on your voice?
The majority of them. Okay. Yes, anytime there's a lot of fighting and screaming, it can be very taxing. In fact, one of my biggest roles was Boss Borat and Mazen Kaiser, and that was 2 days of a very gravelly voice that I had chosen for that character, and I lost my voice after that.
Oh my God.
That was actually one of the ones that Charlie Campbell did that I actually went to Austin to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when Sentai ADV at the time had what was called Monster Studios in Austin, and I was booked as a local actor because my agent was in Austin at that time.
Okay.
And so I kind of fooled them, but they were very happy with the results. So
excellent. It was worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was worth almost losing your voice over.
Yeah, it was.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 72 of Visioncon Live. Before we wrap things up, Mark Leskowski, are there any final thoughts to leave us on? Sage-like wisdom, anything at all?
I did not hear any of that.
Oh, you didn't hear any of that. Did I cut out? I said, before we wrap things up, Mark, are there any final thoughts to leave us on? Sage-like wisdom, anything at all?
Live your life. Be happy. Enjoy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 72 of Visioncon Live. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm your host, Zach Wilson, but much more importantly, this has been my very special guest, Mark Leskowski. Make sure to check out all the links down in the description box below. And until next time, guys, always remember that life's better when you have friends to share it with.